Is it possible that one unattractive object in a home could take down a designer's entire career in one fell swoop?
There is this, for lack of a better word, a work of art on a pedestal that is it's just hideous. I'm sorry. It's just hideous. And it's so hideous that I think it's planted there as like a ha-ha, joke. Look how bad this is. What can you do? What can you do with it?
Right.
So I start laughing uncontrollably. And my producer knows what's up before the words even come out of my mouth, and she's desperately trying to get me to shut up. And I just said, funny that you brought this piece of shit in here to show us how bad your home is.
Oh.
And the woman goes, my sister made that for me.
Oh, geez.
And she's dead. And so I'm like,
my God. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scandalabra. I'm your host, Mark Brunetz. I'm so excited to have our next guest on today. He first immigrated from Greece. Check that box. He lives in LA. Awesome. He's also an award-winning designer who's been featured on over 50 television shows, including The Today Show and Extra, and equal exposure in print, like in Style, TV Guide, Entertainment Weekly. And my favorite part, he has worked as a host on networks like HGTV and TLC. We share so much in common. He's also the mastermind behind Angelo Home. Welcome to the show, Angelo Surmelis.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're excited. So I tell you, as I read your bio, I can't help but wonder, okay, you were on Clean Sweep. I was on Clean House. So we can go literally talk for days about people with clutter, right?
You know what's so funny? We can, and we know some of the same people. But the thing that was so funny, and I don't know if you knew this, like going into what you were doing on Clean House, I really thought that we would be canceled after the first season because I'm like, there cannot be this many homes that have this much clutter. We're just going to be done after a couple episodes.
Yeah,
but it ran forever.
Yeah, no, Clean Sweep ran for a long time.
So did Clean House. Yeah, Clean House ran for,
which proved a very valuable point. We were a nation of. Are we still a nation of clutter? Do you think?
I think it's worse. I think it's gotten worse. I mean, God bless Marie Kondo for being out there and telling people to just, what sparks joy and keep that. But I think we've gotten worse.
Yeah, I read at one point 200 million people in the U.S. suffered from clutter on some level. Now, that could be like a completely disarrayed junk drawer to, living in an RV in your driveway.
That's crazy.
But that's a lot, right?
Yeah, I mean, come on, that's crazy pants.
So let's just dig deep into this because I'm really curious because you did that show, I did that show, and we met a lot of people along the way. What any fun, craziest? What's the craziest thing you found in someone's house?
Well, there were things that. First of all, we're coming to your house. I mean, know we're going to go through your shit.
Right.
Maybe this is a good time to hide the sex toys. I'm just saying.
You're absolutely right. We tell people to put it in their trunk and then drive the car away.
Right.
But they forget.
100%. And so that was always very fascinating and interesting. But the thing that was really upsetting, because that wasn't upsetting, it was just like, okay, guys, come on now. But the thing that was upsetting was like, we, on a couple of occasions, found dead animals because they had chewed their way into the room from outside and then got stuck in the clutter.
Sure.
And so had died underneath all the clutter. So that was upsetting.
That's a horrible story. I would say our worst, and there were actually many, and my heart goes out to these people, which is I think why we tried to help them so much.
Yeah.
I would say the worst was black mold in the fridge, like complete black mold.
Yeah.
You'd open it up and like, oh, I'm gonna grab a soda, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah.
And I know, and because you did it for so long, this, it's not a simple turn of the key. It's not like, oh, we're just gonna, take this out and you'll be fine, because it's a much more deeper mental health issue that has brought people to this place. So
sure.
It's a convoluted issue.
Yeah, you kind of have to peel back the onion, I guess, the layers. That's actually a good, nice little segue into the emotion of design. So, I've read as much as I possibly could about you. And I noticed on your Instagram page, so I'm just dying to ask, it says gay Greek immigrant. Okay, is that in any particular order?
No, it's not. The thing that was the reason that that's there is because I grew up in a very, very conservative household,
Sure.
and a very immigrant, from the old country in Greece. We moved to Illinois, and there were things that you just never talked about, and being gay was absolutely one of them.
I can only
Uh,
imagine.
and it was not the best home to grow up in many regards. And so I spent a lot of years feeling really ashamed of who I was.
Sure.
And through therapy and all the stuff that you do, I'm now proud of it. I'm proud of the fact that I'm a immigrant. I'm proud of the fact that I'm gay. I'm proud of the fact that I'm part of a really thriving, incredible queer community that is only becoming more visible and more noticeable, and pretty much saying, "Hey guys, we just want to be treated like everybody else."
Sure.
So yeah, that's part of the reason it's up there.
Well, I join you in that plight. I definitely, as someone who is gay, and as an adult, came out. I guess you would say. I don't know. I think I came in actually. I think I actually
Yeah,
came into my own truth, but we'll just say coming out. I often wonder, was being gay good or bad for my career? What do you think it was for
yeah.
you? Did it help you?
Uh well, that's a really really good question. I think that it did not help me early on in my career because I was so closeted, and I started out as a theater major when I was in high school and college, and pursued an acting career in Chicago, New York, then eventually in LA. And like anybody else who's part of the queer community, especially during the time that I was growing up, you learn really fast. You have to hide it. If you want a job, you cannot do it. And I remember finally getting a job, and also I had come out at the same time to close family and friends, and our producer pulling me aside and saying, "You can't talk about your personal life at all." And
Isn't that crazy?
yeah, and I was in love at the time, and I wanted to talk about my personal. And he's like, "If you talk about your personal life, you're going to lose this job, and we'll probably not get another one." So that was a real, turning point.
Sure. Yeah, I think I vaguely remember those days. Before design, I used to work in fitness, and I was part of the launch of this network called Cable Health Club, which is now called Fit TV,
Okay.
and it's owned by Discovery. And I'll never forget the one of the lead instructors. It was live segments, and I taught this segment, and I was a really good instructor. I really came from that world, and I remember her pulling me aside and saying, "I just need you to be less gay," and I was like, "What the fuck does
Isn't
that?"
that
What the fuck does that
crazy?
mean?
Oh man, that's such a hard thing to have to hear. That really is a hard thing to have to hear. Because what they're
Yeah,
saying is, we want you to be less you. Just don't be you. Just some.
exactly.
I mean, come on now.
Oh, I will tell you though, there was a turning point, and you and I both share this kindred work spirit. You worked for Style, and of course, I
Hmm.
worked for Style.
Yep.
And I do remember a point at which the network knew I was gay. I mean, it was kind of I made it pretty obvious,
Right.
but they kept wanting me to be gay on TV.
Yeah.
And so, and I was like, okay, I can't be gay on TV. I'm just going to be who I am. So for the longest
Right.
time, I think we are in like season 6 of Clean House. They were like, we need you just to somehow acknowledge it, to say it. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. So I will tell you, Angelo, this is what I did. I'm curious to see what you think. On one episode, I don't know how the scene was playing out, what I was doing, whatever, but all I remember saying is, because someone kind of inferred it, and I'm like, I'm not gay, but my boyfriend is. That's all I said. And the network, I swear to God, ran with that soundbite for like all the promos.
God bless the man for doing that, because that was not the case at the time when I was on Clean Sweep. And but the thing that's so funny, I guess not funny, but ironic, is many many years later, I had auditioned for another show, a reality show, a design show, and I remember the producer. I got a call back, and the producer said, "Can you be more gay?"
Mm.
And I was like, and in that moment, I thought, oh man, how ironic is this that X amount of years ago they're telling me I couldn't be who I was, and now they're asking me to be sort of their version of what a gay stereotype is.
Mhm.
And I did say that, I did say to them, I said, "What does that exactly mean?" I said, "Because I'm as gay as you're gonna get right here, right now.
Right.
Like, what do you need to see? Like, do you need to see me do something very stereotypical?" And essentially,
Yeah.
that was the answer. Yeah.
I don't know. I remember, gosh, it seems like we're just sharing so many memories, and I promise you, we're going to move forward. I asked one of my EPs. I said, "What do you mean by being gay?" He says, "I think you should act like you could spit on a wall and call it art." And I thought, "Wow, put that under the definition of
Oh, wow.
like being gay." Anyway, let's move on. But we are talking about something I think that's near and dear to our hearts, and kind of really why I wanted you on the show. Um, First of all, we have to meet. We can't have this digital relationship anymore, given
I know,
all the
right?
people we know, which we don't need to list them all, but there's a lot.
No, they really are.
Um, but on that note, something I read that you wrote, I think it's on your website, that I really connected with, which was when you moved here, when you immigrated, your family, and believe you moved to Chicago
Mhm.
when you were 6, if I'm not mistaken. And
Correct.
there was this sense of not belonging, like no identity. Like you sound like I was as a kid. I folded my dirty laundry and did slide around a few coffee tables. But you were looking for, like, where am I in this American life? Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I think it's such a typical immigrant story. I think there's a push pull that happens when you come to this country. There's a part of you that wants to be part of your culture, but the bigger part of you, especially if you come really when you're young, really young, you want to be a part of America. You want to blend in. I told people at school the first year that I was there, when I think I was 7, that my name was Scott. Because I wanted so badly to be an American boy, and they're like, "Your name is not fucking Scott." I'm like, it is." So I wanted to fit in so badly,
Sure.
and I didn't know how to do that because I stuck out in so many ways. From my school lunch was like a Greek, like a feta cheese sandwiches and stuff that would be cool today, but back then it was not cool. And I didn't look like everybody else. I didn't sound like everybody else. I was gay, and I didn't fit in at home. I didn't fit in at school, so I didn't know what to do with myself. And it wasn't until I got to college, and I went to an art college, that I all of a sudden saw my tribe. I was like, "Oh my God, there's literally a school of thousands of people that are, artistic and queer and open and all these things, and people of all different backgrounds and all from all over the world." And I thought, "Oh, okay, so there's a place for me in this world."
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Take it from me. I've been dreaming about doing a podcast for years, and I thought there's no way I could do this. But let me explain. First of all, it's free, and all their creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. It couldn't be any easier. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you. It can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And this is cool. You can make money from your podcast. Got your passion, want to share it with the world, good advice, tips, whatever it might be. Because here's the cool part, there is no minimum number of listeners. You actually can make money off of that with Anchor. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. So, Angelo, I'm curious, as you were looking to connect and kind of self identify and all of that, do you think on some level, because you and I definitely party of two here, share
Yeah.
the whole makeover genre, expert, dispensing advice, and all that, do you
Yep.
think on some level that that's why people are obsessed with design and home makeovers and the whole genre itself, that they're perhaps looking to find themselves in it?
100%. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that is a big part of why people are connected to it. I think they're looking to not only to see themselves, but to see other people through design. I always tell people that, just give me 5 minutes in a stranger's house and I can tell you everything about them.
Oh,
And
yes.
it's not because I'm psychic. It's because after many, many years, I'm sure the same thing with you of doing this, you pick up on personality traits, and that is reflected in the way people live in their homes. And so I think we as a society are just so curious. We want to peek in the window. You walk down the street and you see somebody's lights on, you want to see, what that house looks like, because we're curious to see how others live, to either be inspired or to find a way into somebody else's life, or to sort of like be validated about our own choices. So yeah, I think that interest will never go away.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think it's interesting. I suspect you've done a lot of home and garden shows.
I
Yeah,
have, yeah.
yeah, that's I think how we know our friend Liz, and
Yeah.
so I noticed that in doing those shows and kind of traveling across the country, and for those listening, home and garden shows are exactly what they are. They're big home and garden shows that display a lot of vendors and products and ideas, and they
Yeah.
have presenters speak, and they usually happen over a weekend. Some of them are even longer than that. Um, but what I noticed is that, first of all, you're standing on somewhat of a platform, you're looking at an audience speaking. And I had this epiphany one day that maybe I'm really not the best expert on your life. So therefore, why am I standing up here telling you how to live? Do you ever
That's
experience that?
interesting. That's really interesting. I did early on. I remember the first year, because I left TLC and had moved over to HGTV, and HGTV was a much bigger platform for this kind of genre at the time. I mean, actually, they still are. They're actually bigger now.
Right.
And so that's when I really started doing home and garden shows across the country. And for the first few shows, I felt like a giant fraud. And I did. I was like, why am I up here? I remember trying to talk one of the bookers out of booking me. And she was like, are you trying to talk me out of booking you for this show? I'm
Right.
like, I think I am. She's like, shut the fuck up and just come to the damn show. I'm like, all right. And I'm not going to name the person, but there was somebody else that I was doing the show with who was a much bigger celebrity in that world. And they came from a really, really big show.
Ty Pennington.
And no, it wasn't. It wasn't Ty. And Ty was lovely, and I've met Ty, and he's been lovely. But it was somebody else, and they came over, and they must have noticed that I was like feeling like a fraud or didn't want to go on, and just put their arm around me and said, "They don't know that you don't know. Just shut up and go do it." And I'm like, how do you know? He's like, because we all feel exactly the same fucking way. I'm like, all right. So, and it was such great advice, because at the end of the day, I think everyone feels that it's that imposter syndrome, but there is something that, you are not doing, and you yourself were not in that genre because you didn't know what you were talking about. But I think that there is a sense of responsibility when you're telling people what to do in their home, where you're like, "Oh shit, did I just tell them to, like, gut their kitchen and maybe they shouldn't be doing that?"
Yes,
But
you
but I'm
did. Yes, you
yeah, I
did.
did. Yeah,
And
but I'm
people
over it
left. And
now.
people left that show and went home and gutted their kitchen, Angelo.
They did. I know. I'm over it now. I'm all like, "Yeah, got that damn kitchen," because it looks horrible.
Yeah, well, it's so funny you say that, because I can hear in your conversation how you go from diplomacy to, like, I'm just going to tell you what I think,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I think that's a part of it. I think, that people just want to be told. Maybe they want a stamp of approval. Maybe they want some
Yes.
assurance. They may,
Yes.
yeah, and I've even had people in those things like hold up pictures. This is my kitchen now. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't even see that picture, and like, this is not the forum for discussing your kitchen. But
But you nailed it. You really hit the nail on the head, is that people want somebody else to tell them that it's okay. And I think that that is such a powerful human thing. Like, you want somebody else to say your choice is good, or to say that may not be the right choice for you. You're going down the wrong road. And I think that we all want that validation to a certain degree.
do you think that's fair? I mean, do you think the makeover industry is doing a service or a disservice? Let's look at big picture. Last 15 years, pre-extreme makeover, like all of that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Is the genre really servicing people? Where is it servicing and where is it disservicing?
I've seen both. I've seen it. Because, like you, I'm sure I've traveled all over this country, seen so many homes, and I've seen people show me what they've done because they've seen somebody do it, and it has really enriched their lives, and they feel really great, and they feel proud, and they feel a sense of accomplishment. And then you see, like, the thing gone wrong. And And so it really comes down to information. So I think when it does a really good service is when the people dispensing that knowledge are really informative. They know what they're talking about, and they don't put out blanket statements. They don't say like, "This is what everyone can do," because not everyone can do this.
Sure.
Sometimes you shouldn't be doing it. And I think the people that are really good at it are the ones to follow. But there's a lot of bad information out there, and I think it's only gotten even more confusing now because of YouTube and because of all the other channels that people can surf and look at all these ideas, and not all of them are for you. You have to be really discerning.
Well, not whoa. Not only are not all of them for you, some of them aren't even doable.
Yeah,
Half
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
images out there you see are completely computer generated. They're not. They never even
Right,
been built.
right.
One of the things I love Frank Gehry used to say is like, a good design is one you can build.
Yeah,
And I
and that is 100%, 100%.
Yeah, I always remember that. So let's talk about those. How does someone, here you are, you're an expert, you're dispensing advice, what's the most brutal thing you've ever had to say to someone? Well, how
God,
about
that's
if
a
I tell
really
you
tough.
mine and then you
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me yours. Yeah, tell me.
So I remember I was piloting the show called Tacky House, and basically the husband called the show because he did not like his wife's design or decor. So the wife's on the show thinking, "Oh, this is a show celebrating my design." Well, I have to run in and say, "Sorry, you're actually on a show called Tacky House. Your husband doesn't like the way you design. It looks like your wedding day all over, and there's a reason it was a wedding day. It was only one day, and you get the picture, right?"
Yep,
So I remember looking around the room, and you know how they used to sell those words like "live, love, laugh" that people hung on their
yep,
walls?
yep,
Okay,
yep, yep.
I said, "Look, it says live, love, laugh. It really should just say live, love, laugh, leave." And she looked, and she looked at me. I don't even know how that came out of my mouth, but you have those
Oh,
moments, Angelo, like
yes,
just something comes
yes,
out of your mouth, like right
yes,
now.
yes.
And so I remember, I was like, "Oh shit, is that like too brutal?" Anyway, you had to have had one of those moments. Come on.
Yeah, I've had no, no, no. I have. I've had so many, and the one that it actually what you just said just spurred something, and it was we would do on most of the shows that I did for HGTV a pre-sweep where you go to the house that the person had applied to be a part of to see like is it suitable for the crew, can they put their equipment around, is it a decent enough size house to be able to do a major makeover that's going to look good on camera for before and after, all that stuff.
Right.
And so it was like, so I'd gone with my producers, and we're in the house, and the people are lovely, and we're taking a tour of the house. They're showing us the room they want us to do. There is this, for lack of a better word, a work of art on a pedestal that is it's just hideous. I'm sorry. It's just hideous. And it's so hideous that I think it's planted there as like a haha joke. Look how bad this is. What can you do? What can you do with it?
Right.
So I start laughing uncontrollably, and and my producer knows what's up before the words even come out of my mouth, and she's desperately trying to get me to shut up. And I just said, funny that you brought this piece of shit in here to show us how bad your home is.
Oh,
And the woman goes, "Oh yeah, yeah," because it looked like it was planted, like it was like in the middle of the room. And the woman said, "My sister made that for me, and she's
oh,
dead."
geez.
And she's dead. And so I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
"You've got to be kidding me." I felt so horrible. And it became like, needless to say, we did not do that house as a makeover. And I felt horrible, but it would looked so bad that I really did think that it was one of those things that was planted. And when we left, I remember my producer going, "Why? I knew you were just going to make fun of that thing." I said, "But was I completely off?" She goes, "No, it looked like it was planted." I'm like, "Thank you," but it was bad. It was still bad. It was like a horrible thing to say.
Yeah. Well, you did. It's
I
over.
did. Oh, it was horrible. Yeah, it was horrible.
Hopefully she's recovered, and
Horrible.
and damn, that piece of art's probably still sitting on that
It's horrible.
pedestal.
She actually follows me on Instagram and sent me a note about a couple of months ago saying, "Hey, remember that one time you thought my sister's art was really ugly?" She's like, "Yeah, I no longer own it anymore."
Ah, see,
I'm like,
you made a difference.
no, I don't. Well, I don't know about that, but still should not have said anything.
Hey, I'm really curious. We look at a lot of images on screen in magazines and, especially a lot of the shelter magazines, and they're so overly art directed. I mean, you know that, right?
Yeah.
And they're just like, no one could live there. It's so rare to find a place that you could actually inhabit. They look like they're merchandise and staged like, a Macy's window or something. Um, so I'm curious, is that really doing right by people? We're seeing these beautiful rooms and I don't know about you. I'm not sure where you are in the metaphysical world or spiritual world, but here's a little test. When I see something like that or something that like, oh wow, that's fucking amazing. All it reminds me of is that I'm not amazing. It
Yeah.
just like I'll never get to live like that. So
Yeah.
what do you think about that? And do you think people are experiencing that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I grew up on those kinds of magazines. I collected all those beautiful magazines, and it made me horribly insecure about my own, poor, humble homes and
Sure.
apartments and everything. But now I have a very different point of view about them because I know it's fake. I know that's not how real people live. I appreciate the aspirational value of it, but I always tell my clients and people in general, and also myself, is like, that's not real life. I don't live like that. Like, I don't know any designer, like a really great designer that lives like that. They may make their house look like that for a photo spread, but that's not their daily life. And I think that as long as you recognize that and you realize it's kind of like, the person on the cover of a magazine who's been altered and plucked and pulled and airbrushed and lit perfectly with a
Sure.
professional. That's just not real life. And I think the great thing that's happening, at least it seems to be happening in the last few years, is that the younger generation is kind of like bucking the system on that. That's not what they want to see. They want to see a nice place that's aspirational, but they want to see real life living. They want to see people's homes that look like people actually live in them, not like they're
Sure.
a museum. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd absolutely agree. It's kind of like I think there was a whole undecorate movement that happened about
Yep.
10 years ago.
Yep.
And I wish that had really taken off. And I think it's kind of the thing I loved about Domino magazine when it first came out.
Agreed. Yes.
It was just real. It was like real pictures and
Yep.
we definitely strayed away from that. I think, wouldn't you say so much of just technology and the internet and all that is really assisted? I mean, there's not a day that goes by that I don't learn about one more thing that's fake. I talk to my team all the time. I'm like, you guys, now have you seen the documentary called Made You Look? Now the art's
Yep.
fake.
Right.
Now, like, this is fake. Now that's fake. The food's fake. Like, oh my God, what's real anymore?
Yeah, I think younger people today are really keen on sniffing it out and recognizing that it's fake and not real, and they're really thirsty for something authentic out there. And they're also the ones that are making that kind of content that is authentic and real. And this is the way I live. And sure, I might have like really beautiful things in my house, but I also have, I don't know, like a chewed up sofa because I have a dog, and
Sure.
that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about those influencers because I really feel like when we're talking about social media, we're talking about a lot of home decor influencers out there
Absolutely.
who I don't know what they do. I mean, God love them. Do they just keep walking around their house and redecorating?
If that's what
I
they
mean,
do, tip of the hat to them, man. If they
yeah,
could find a way to monetize that, my hat's off to them. First of all, I don't have that kind of time. Second of all, I don't know how people do that 24/7. I love design, but I also have a life, and I think that. To your point earlier about things being fake, I remember this segment once where they did this. Forget what channel it was on, but it was like a segment of like Nate Berkus in his home, and it was this beautiful loft in New York at the time, and he's showing his home, and it's so gorgeous. And my favorite part of that whole moment was he's showing this beautiful leather sofa, and he says, "But you want to see the reality of my life?" And he pulls back a throw, and the sofa is just chewed up to
yeah,
this is
that's life.
yeah, he's like, this is my real life because I got two dogs and they're both just monsters, but I love them. And he goes, so you buy a really pretty throw and you just throw it over it. And I thought that right there is great design because you're talking about how people really live.
Yeah, I love it. Angela, you just reminded me, I know you have a rescue pit mix as well, and I have
I do.
too.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the day, and I swear I have to post this on our Instagram for anybody listening. I came home, walked in the front door, and no exaggeration, two pillows from Room and Board, I'll just add, had been completely destroyed,
Oh.
all the feather down all over it looked like my living room was flocked.
Oh, no, Mark, and these are not cheap pillows either,
Well,
so
they're not cheap pillows, but, do you know how hard it is to clean up feathers?
yes. Yes,
You
yes, I do.
can't vacuum because the vacuum
No,
actually blows it away before it sucks it.
exactly.
So you're just kinda sweeping endlessly.
Yep.
But I think what you're pointing to is, yeah, that's real life. I swear if we saw more of that, it'd be so awesome, and it just seems like influencers, much like kind of the old school, we're just putting out these images of like, look how wonderful life is. And
Right.
I know you say it's aspirational. I get it. I'm not throwing these people under the bus. I'm just saying, like, when are we going to get real? And when are we really going to understand that? Look, I'm the expert on my life. I need to sift through this stuff and choose
Yep.
what really works for me.
Right.
I have my own DNA, my own style. I don't need to emulate anymore. Let's talk about emulation. I mean, it just seems
Okay,
like
you are
so
now
much.
hitting the nerve that, like, I am such a sort of, like, a zealot about. I One of my least favorite questions that I get asked is, tell us what the new hip trends are in design. It
Ugh.
drives me bonkers. And now I don't answer that question. I say, there are much better qualified people to answer that question because I don't believe in trends. Because I think it's great to be aware of what's out there, but a trend is not going to set your life on fire. It's not going to give you the way you really should live. And also, you just brought up a really good point. I'm a huge fan of helping my client or a friend find their individual style that has nothing to do with anything else that they've seen. Because at the end of the day, your home is about storytelling, and the story you are telling is yours. You're not telling an influencer story, you're not telling a magazine story, you're not telling a television show story, you're not telling my story as your designer, you're telling your story. And I think that we need more of that. We need people to really empower others to tap into their creativity and figure out what their specific story is. Create your own fucking trend. You don't need to find out what the trend is.
Oh my God, Angela, you're my new best friend. You don't want to get me started, but I will just add a couple things to what you said. I believe that trends were created by companies to sell product. That's it,
100%. Yeah,
period. And
100%.
I know you know that.
Yeah.
So the idea of telling someone to go out and put, some persimmon pillows on their sofa because that's like the hottest color of the summer. Well, what happens when summer's over? What happens when persimmon is no longer the hot color?
Yeah.
So what do? Just recycle? You might as well just go back and be on Clean House or Clean,
Right.
yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, you said something about, which I love. Why don't we just help people identify who they are and what they love and what really matters to them? People used to ask me all the time, what's the color of the year? And I say the color of the year is the color you love.
Yep. Yep. It's 100%. I went to a wine tasting once at this very fancy winery, and it was the best experience I ever had because during the tour, somebody asked the sommelier who was like giving us all these wines, how can you tell if it's a really great wine? And she turned without missing a beat and said, if you like it. Period.
Brilliant. Yeah,
Not
brilliant.
how much it costs, not what year it is, not what score it got in what wine magazine. Do you like it? She goes, I've put wine in my mouth that's supposed to be the best in the world. That's hundreds and hundreds of dollars a bottle, and I've hated the taste of it. So that's, for me, that's not a good wine. And I'm like, oh my God, I love you. And that's the way with design too. Doesn't matter what any expert, including myself, says to you. If you do not like it, if it does not resonate with you, then it is bad design for you.
So you're okay with your Instagram follower friend who you completely bastardized her piece of art? If
Yes.
she comes back now and says, "I decided to reclaim it. I
Yeah.
went
That's
to the Goodwill and bought it back."
Absolutely. And here's the thing: I felt bad for two reasons. Number one, because it was such a mean thing to say. Number two, because at the end of the day, I was like, "Who the fuck am I to tell somebody that what they have is bad?" Because
Yeah.
first of all, it's not in my house, so who cares? Second of all, if you love it, if you genuinely love it, then that's it. That's it. That's all I need to know as a designer. You love it. We will work around it. We'll figure it out. And yeah, so get it back, put it back in your house. Hell, put a spotlight on it.
Yeah, we have to find her now. So what would you say is one of the worst things you've ever had to decorate around in your mind's eye? Like you're like, holy shit, I got to figure out how to make that look good.
I did a show for a hot minute on Lifetime. It was the very, very first show I did, called Merge, and it was about two couples moving in together for the very first time, and it was like his stuff and her stuff, and how do you make it work? And it was a nightmare, because oh god, I don't want to call the guy out, but he had like typical bachelor guy stuff,
Mhm.
and she had very
He didn't
different
have a water
taste.
bed, did he? Please tell me he
No,
didn't
he
have a
did.
water bed.
He did not. No, he didn't. But there was stuff I had to merge that was like, I'm all like, how the heck do I merge this with this? And it looked like a hot mess. So
Yeah.
it was the hardest thing I've had to do. But since then, the great thing is that I learned from that experience so well, and I think, and you know this, you spend more of your time being a psychologist to your client than a designer. So you do a lot of like, mental gymnastics before you actually get in there and do
Sure.
the pretty stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about interior therapy because I
Yeah,
think that's what you're really pointing to.
absolutely.
So obviously, we've met hundreds of families across the country in our travels and work and all that. Um, is there anybody who stands out as just, wow, like I really have to dig deep here? Like just maybe took you by surprise or just caught you off guard? Or you really wish you could have called in the real professionals, like health wise?
Um, the thing that strikes me every time, and it happened so often, was the level of crying, and a
Mm.
lot of it for me during a reveal that would happen because I'm a crier, that would happen. And people always would say to me, when I would meet them, they're like, "Oh my gosh, why are people crying on TV? It's just a pretty room. What's the big deal? Get over it." And I would always say, it's not the pretty room that they're crying about. They're not crying because the room is pretty. They're crying, especially when they go into that ugly cry, because what they see is potential in their life. It's created a shift as to what is possible. And the letters that we would get months after the makeover, that created this sort of like springboard to like reconnecting with people that they had stopped talking to, or going back to school, or whatever it was that made them feel like they had value. And it wasn't because the room was pretty, it was because so much had changed in that time to make them feel like there was possibility. And that, to me, every time was just, it got me every time. The running joke with my producer was, if the homeowner isn't crying on reveal, put the camera on Angelo because he's bawling like a little baby in the corner somewhere. And it's true. I can't help myself. That's the kind of stuff that really gets me, and I love
You
it.
know, I think I am now Greek by podcast. You and I have just connected on so many levels. I can't even believe this because, all right. So I absolutely agree with you. I always say the three most common words in makeover television are, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And
Mhm.
then, someone starts crying and hopefully tears of joy.
Right.
But I think you're right. It has less to do with the big screen TV, although some people have jumped up and down over that, which I find remarkable when you did their whole house and that's what they got excited about. But besides that, I think that there is this realization that, like, first of all, someone acknowledged me, like, wow, someone
Yes.
acknowledged me.
Yes.
They did this for me. And then maybe I actually am worth it. And
Right.
maybe I can be a better person. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. It's being seen. I think it's being seen, and being seen in such a personal space, your own home, and being felt like, it feeling like you've been understood. I don't know. There's something really magical about that, and it's the biggest thing that I miss about the makeover genre, that connection with the homeowner and how they feel about themselves. It's magic.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately we're designing for a life well lived. We
Hmm.
want people to have a great life. And I think that's part of the impetus of why I wanted to chat with you today is I can only imagine that your career and emotional intelligence has evolved, right? Let's hope mine has, and that's the goal of all of
Yeah,
us, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
um, but with that, you know, the idea of going from an expert and then you're the client over there and I know something you don't and conveying that information. as we pointed out earlier, there's still a lot of that out there today, whether it's social influencers, whether it's magazines and pretty pictures and the way people talk, and even segments on the, I think you did the Today Show, and,
Yeah.
and I've done shows like that. And,
Yeah.
even when I go back and watch them, I'm like, oh God, I just want to pull back the curtain. Like,
Yeah.
that all did not just happen in a weekend. I didn't
Right.
wallpaper my ceiling in a couple hours on a
Right.
Saturday.
Yeah.
So I just wonder, where's the tipping point? In your mind's eye, you sound incredibly intelligent. You sound like you've
Thanks.
evolved in your career. I love that you're connected to people and what matters. What's the tipping point? What's the lesson? What can we tell people to maybe for the first time in their lives understand that that all that vanity that we're seeing is maybe a little unfair. It's a little unfair to who we are and how we really want to live.
Mark, it's oh my gosh, you are speaking my language here because this is something I get very passionate and emotional about. So I'm gonna try not to cry, but I really do believe we are at that place in the world, especially what we've gone through in the past year and a half in terms of the global pandemic, because if nothing else, it has forced so many of us to rethink our lives, not only by ourselves, but in the way that we connect to the rest of the world. And as much as I love design, so much of it is vanity. And the show that I've always wanted to do was the one that kind of, I always called it like the Anthony Bourdain version of design, because he was such a hero of mine. And he told stories that happened to revolve around food. And
And
I think
brilliant. He was
he was
brilliant. He was a
brilliant. He was
brilliant
brilliant.
storyteller. Yes.
And that's what I have always wanted to do in the genre, is to talk about design in a real way that has nothing to do with trends, has nothing to do with what's, oh, this is, this is the prettiest color this season, this is why I chose it, because that to me is just superfluous. I want to talk about why people's lives change in their homes and how we can do that and how they can do that for themselves and empower them to do that in a real livable way, and also tell their stories because people are so fascinating in their homes. And I think that we are in a place right now as a society where people are really hungry for that in all aspects, and but especially in design, because we've been stuck in our homes for like 12 months looking at the same stuff, looking at the same four walls, and thinking, and this is what I'm hearing from my clients, thinking, is this really who I am? Because you're not some Pinterest page that you picked out and to put on your wall. Nothing against Pinterest, because there's some beautiful stuff there, but it's not the thing that should be the driver in the way that you live your life. So I'm hoping we're at that tipping point now.
Amen. Hey, everyone. I want to take a moment to thank Misio Home for supporting Scandalabra. Imagine having access to the creative minds of the world's best artisans, designers, and dreamers. Misio Home was launched for design-savvy enthusiasts just like you and me, because we appreciate original works, quality materials, and above all, how our home makes us feel. And now we have a very special code from Misio that will get you, our listeners, 20% off. Just use the word podcast at checkout and you will receive 20% off on your next purchase. Thank you, Misio. That's MISSIO home.com. And I'm curious, Angelo, what's one of your guilty pleasures?
Oh, I don't have any, and the reason I say that is because I'm not guilty about anything that I find pleasurable. Like things that I love, I'm not going to be guilty about it. Screw it, man.
Is that
No,
the Greek
so
way of life? Is that like the,
yeah, I think it probably is. I think there's that little sort of like, life is so freaking short,
Yeah.
and you don't get, another chance at it. And if I'm gonna have, pizza, a Coke, and some ice cream, hell, I love it. Why am I gonna be guilty about that? Screw it.
I'm with you. Mine's French fries. Besides
Yeah.
that,
Oh my God. Yes. Sign me up for that.
French fries have come back too, by the way. They were like, how we all went through that low carb craze.
Wait,
Which
did
is
they go?
really,
Oh, right. Yeah.
yeah. They
I
went
never,
away.
I
Now they're
never went
back.
through it.
Now I just, okay, good for you. You were probably eating yogurt and like honey or something really healthy, right?
Well, I do have
I mean,
yogurt
look
and
at
honey,
you.
but
You look so super fit and
oh,
healthy. Oh my
thank you. That's
God.
right. Well, that's because my boyfriend is a personal trainer, and he's also
Ah,
he's also much younger than I am, so I have to somehow keep up. But no, but I don't diet. I don't like, my idea of food is the same way with design. If you love it, then you should have it in your life. Period.
great. I love that. That's a great place to end this show. Angelo, I don't know what more I can say about this time with you. It's been so incredible on so many levels. And I just want to make sure you know why. One, we have such a shared history. We know so many people in common. It sounds to me like in many ways, and I'm will never be your better half, maybe just your half, that we are sharing this vision of helping people really live a life, well lived, and one that really honors and reflects who they are, not someone else. And I think at some point we just got to put the magazine down. We got to stop the Instagram. We got to stop following. Look, I'm all for that stuff. It's part of our culture today. But at the end of the day, it might not be the best way to identify who you are and how you want to live.
Mark, this is such a pleasure. I do feel like we've been separated at birth, so maybe there's some Greek heritage in your life back there. But no, this was amazing. Thank you for having me on, and I share the same opinions that you do. I think it's time for people to be as individual as possible in their lives, and especially in their homes.
Thanks so much, Angelo. Enjoyed
Thank
it.
you, guys. Thank you. Me too. It was a pleasure.
This has been an MBU production. To learn more, go to markbrunetz.com. That's MarkBrunetz.com.